Hi there! Welcome back to Basics, our journey to master electronics one little bit at a time. Today we are talking about this tiny piece of plastic and metal that costs about 5 cents. And yet, without it, the modern world would completely grind to a halt. No smartphones, no internet, no computers. This is the transistor, and we are going back to basics to uncover how it works, how it changed history, and how you can use it on your workbench. If you ever felt intimidated by terms like semiconductors, NPN, MOSFETs, don't worry, we are going to break down the physical principles simply, look at the two main branches of the transistor family tree, and then jump into the lab to see them manipulate electricity in real time. Let's begin. At its absolute core, a transistor is nothing more than an electronic bulb. In a plumbing pipe, water flows from one end to the other, and if you wanted to stop it or change the flow, you just turn a handle. Now imagine replacing the mechanical handle with a tiny control wire. By feeding a very small amount of current into that wire, you can control a massive flow of current through the main pipe. Well, that is the transistor. It can act as a lightning-fast switch or a smooth proportional amplifier. Before 1947, if you wanted to amplify a radio signal or build a computer, you had to use vacuum tubes. They were bulky, fragile, consumed mass amounts of power, and burned out constantly. Then John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley at Bell Labs created this, the first point contact transistor. It used a small sliver of germanium. By pushing two gold foils contact incredibly close together on the surface, they discovered they could leverage the physics of semiconductor. If you remember our episode on diodes, you know that doping silicon with impurities creates p-type regions containing holes and n-type regions which have extra electrons. By sandwiching these together into 3 layers instead of 2, they create a device where a tiny charge in the middle layer completely changes whether the outer layers conduct electricity or block it entirely. It is rugged, microscopic, and requires 0 warm-up time. As technology evolved, 2 main styles of transistors rose to dominance. On the left we have the BJT or Bipolar Junction Transistor, and on the right the FET or Field-Effect Transistor. The fundamental difference comes down on how you control them. BJTs are current controlled. A small current flowing into the control pin unlocks a larger current through the device. FETs are voltage controlled. You just apply an electrical pressure, an electrostatic field basically, to the control pin to open the gate, requiring almost no continuous current at all. Let's look at the BJT first. This one is an NPN BJT. Its 3 pins are the emitter, the base, and the collector. Think of the collector as the water supply, the emitter as the drain, and the base as our control handle. The current flowing through the collector, which we call IC, is directly proportional to the current entering the base, which we call IB, multiplied by a gain factor usually called beta or HFE. Usually, this multiplier is anywhere in between 100 and 300, depending on the transistor type, and it can go also below or above. Let's build a very simple circuit using this transistor and an LED. Right now, the base is disconnected, so no current enters, and the transistor blocks the flow of the current through the LED, which is therefore dark. But now watch this. I'm going to touch the positive rail with one finger and the base pin with my other finger. Look at that! My body has a very high resistance between the fingers, so only a very small amount of current in the order of the microamps can flow through the base of the transistor. The transistor, however, multiplies that tiny current hundreds of times, to the point that the LED lights up. See? This is a classical example of current amplification. Now, what if we want to run something heavy, like this DC motor? Yes, we can use a BJT for that, but we would need to provide to the base a continuous current to make the motor run continuously. And that, of course, wastes energy and creates heat. What can we do to avoid that? Enter the MOSFET. Instead of a base, collector and emitter, the MOSFET has a gate, a drain and a source. The genius here is that the gate is completely insulated from the rest of the transistor by a very thin layer of silicon dioxide. It's essentially a tiny built-in capacitor. When we apply a voltage to the gate, it creates an electric field that attracts electrons, opening a wide ultra-low resistance channel between the drain and the source. Notice that I don't even need a continuous flow of current into the gate. I just charged it up with a voltage, and the current flows plentiful. And in fact, if I disconnect the control wire, look, the motor keeps running. Why? Because a charge is now trapped on the insulating gate. To turn it off, we need to remove this charge, which we can do by grounding the gate for a moment. Because they can switch fully on with almost zero resistance, MOSFETs can stay incredibly cool while handling massive amount of power, making them perfect for digital logic circuits and for power supplies. Now that you have seen how these components function on the test bench, you might be wondering, what should I actually buy to start playing with this myself? Well, if you go looking at a components distributor, you will find tens of thousands of different part numbers, which is incredibly overwhelming. But the truth is, you only need about 4 or 5 different transistor types in your stack to build 95% of beginner and intermediate do-it-yourself projects. Let's look at the absolute essentials for your lab drawer. First up are your low-power BJT signal switches. Your absolute standard defaults are the 2N3904, which is an NPN transistor, and its complementary partner, the 2N3906, which is a PNP transistor. As an alternative, you can get the BC547 and the BC557, fulfilling the exact same role. These are dirt cheap, literally pennies apiece, and they are fantastic for handling small signals, running classic analog circuits like LED blinkers, driving small 5-volt relays, or handling basic audio preamplification. You just pick up a bag of 50 or 100 of them, you will use them all, you see. Next, you need a small signal FET. One option is the 2N7000. This one is an N-channel MOSFET inside that same tiny plastic housing. Because it is voltage controlled, it has an incredibly high input impedance, and this makes it the absolute perfect choice for interfacing directly with the sensitive I/O pins of an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi to step up signals without drawing power from your microcontroller. Another option is to get a J201, which is a general-purpose amplifier FET. Very good for small amplifiers that need a high input impedance. You can get them both if you like. My suggestion is to get some for your first project, 10 for example, and if you need something different later on, you can buy a few of the other ones, so you slowly increase your stockpile without spending a lot of money at once. Finally, when you need to step away from small currents and drive instead something with real power, like heavy LED strips, solenoid valves or hefty DC motors, you need a power MOSFET in a TO220 package. Look for the 30N06, like this one, capable of driving up to 8 amps of current, or even the STP60NF06, which can go up to 30 amps. That metal tab on the back isn't just for show. It allows you to bolt the transistor on a heatsink to dissipate heat when you are pushing several amps of current through the device. Having just a handful of these three types of transistors, BJT for small signals, FET or MOSFET for low signals, and power MOSFET for the heavy lifting, gives you the freedom to build almost anything. Whether you are designing a precise analog audio amplifier using the linear regions of a BJT, or switching high current motors at thousands of times a second with a power MOSFET, understanding these three terminal devices changes how you look at hardware. If you enjoyed this dive into the basics, hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next workbench experiment, and let me know in the comments what's your favorite go-to transistor for quick prototypes. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video, and happy experiments!